It is 6:30 p.m., Tuesday, November 13th, and welcome to week 2 of drugs and crime. Um, and I will not be going as long as I did last week with the open house. I will not go over the same materials that I went over in the open house, but I will continue to say things that are important as you discover this week that you will have your first actual written assignment other than your discussion post. Last week you had the quiz, and so you want to make sure that you note and pay attention to the requirements that I will cover for the written assignment so that you will be able to get started um, pretty strong in terms of making sure that you get these assignments in on time. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. And there it is. Okay. I will say this. You are required to conduct research for all papers. That means the sole source of your papers should not be the textbook. You'll lose 2 points for that. That is not in the rubric, but that is the requirement that you need to just overall remember. And also you need to remember, it is in the rubric, all written assignments should be in APA format. That means citations in the body and of the paper and references at the end. And then reminder, you'll lose 1 point for not providing a cover sheet for all written assignments. So these requirements consist of every assignment, written assignment that you do in this class. Okay. And then you'll see here that you are required to attend the live lecture and or to view the lecture, and you must provide me the keyword. Even if you are in the lecture, if you view the lecture, it is important that you supply me the keyword, and you put that in the drop box for the assignment. And many of you know what I'm talking about. And so all our lectures from this point on will be Tuesdays, 6:30 p.m. Central to 7:30 p.m. Central, or sometime before that, okay, that we'll conclude. So now let's go to our week 2 announcements right now. The history of legislation regulating drug use and abuse we presented, and you read chapters 5 and 8 of Drugs, Crime, and Justice, which I sent you the PowerPoints already. Regulation of drug precursors, regulation of synthetic drugs, Freakonomics of crack dealing, and then federal drug activity laws. We'll talk a little bit about that this week. And then your written assignment is discussion, mandatory sentencing for drug-related crimes. There's a scenario given to you, and you are to respond accordingly. That was the initial post is due tonight by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And while I'm talking about discussion posts, make very sure that you provide details, not just a comment that was a good post, I liked the post. You will lose points for that. And if it's a one-line, very brief post, you won't get any points for it. And so then your reply post, of course, is due by Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. I do encourage you to reply to more than one post, and I encourage you to make sure that you get those posts in on time, because you've already seen how I grade the posts themselves. So you want to make sure that you have that information. All right. And then your written project, what is heroin? And then you'll also have the quiz to do. And I remind you, make sure that you uh, study all the materials before you attempt to do the quiz. Some students try to do the quiz right away and don't score very well on it, so you want to make sure that you do that. And then my motto, adversity is springboard to success, you know what that's all about because of last week's lecture covered that, okay? All righty. So let's get right to the course calendar. Course calendar. This is where we are this week, right here. So it gives you reading assignments again. When you click on that again, it gives your initial post and then your reply post due Saturday. Then it gives the course project and it gives the quiz, okay? Then, of course, you should be aware that the keyword for your live lecture is also due by that Saturday as well. If you, I mean by that Sunday. So that's the 18th. So you want to make sure that you get those two things in. So you have the live lecture here that's due with the keyword, Module 2 quiz, and Module 2 first written course assignment, okay? I always encourage you, keep up with the calendar, check the calendar if you have any questions about times when assignments are due, because it's always going to be there. You have the whole calendar, so you can see the entire quarter right before you, all right? So let's go back. And then let's go straight to the module. Again, let's go over the assignments. So for your first assignment, it tells you some bold and stuff in bold print. Pay close attention to what's in bold print. Yes, you read the fact pattern, the requirements, but make sure that you satisfy these. You'll also see this in the rubric, which I'm about to click on as well. And then it talks about 3 credible resources, and it tells you other than the textbook. So if you got the textbook and 2 other sources, you're going to lose points. Don't cite information from Wikipedia. I've said that time and time again, and consequently students still insist on writing papers, but they use Wikipedia. You will be dinged on big points for that because we make it clear in the written assignment as well as in the rubric, and make sure that you have a cover page and reference page, and then proper citations in your paper. Again, it reminds you of that as well. Now you need help with the assignment. We have the guide. Click on the Module 2 tab, which is right here. Go back again. Before I come back to this, I will show you what I'm talking about. There it is, the guide right here. And it tells you that you can use this to help you with your written assignment. Very important help. This is a real good resource, trust me. Worked very hard to get this in to help you. Now, here is the rubric. The due date, then view the rubric. Whoops. There we go. Okay. You have to satisfy all of these requirements to get the 30 points. See, the last thing, 3 credible resources other than the textbook. As after you do that, 3-page minimum requirement. And make sure that you write paragraphs well organized, well written papers as well. And then, once again, citations and references are required, and then no Wikipedia or other generic sources. But Wikipedia is the number one source that people use over and over again. But remember, again, citations and references. Citations, not just one citation. I've seen students write citations on one page, maybe even 2 pages, but they don't do it on the 3rd page, and you'll get dinged for that. Citations should be provided throughout the body of your paper. Remember the purpose for citations. Citations provide support for the statements that are contained in your paper. So you write a statement, and not every sentence, but, detailed some information, and that information came from somewhere, even if you paraphrased it, and you're still going to properly do the APA citations. And you want to make sure you do that so you can get full credit for it. And then, of course, the time date. One student said to me that they didn't see in the rubric a late submission policy. I said, it's not in the rubric. It's in the syllabus, and I covered it during week 1. And you can look at the syllabus, and you can read it very carefully, and it tells you. And I do work with students on the late assignment policy, but I have to understand people submit late assignments all the time, and if they don't let me know why they did it, they haven't let me know earlier why they did it, not when they submit it. They haven't tried to reach out to me through one of the methods that I indicate at the very beginning of the course, and every week it's on your course homepage that by texting, email me, or following me any hour of the day except the 25th hour, letting me know that you're having some kind of problem. And then be aware, if there's extenuating circumstances, then I will be flexible with it, but I will give you instructions as to how to remind me when I do the grading, even if you do let me know in advance. The key thing is that the formula for success is timely assignments, following the responsibility of the student to get them in on time, and satisfying the rubric. I would use the rubric as a checklist to make sure that I've done everything. And then, of course, one thing that the rubric doesn't include, but I've already told you this, is critical thinking is very important in this course. Critical thinking will be measured by what I read, of course, but it also will be systematically checked through Grammarly when I check the plagiarism box. If your percentage is high, I won't even get to the rubric. I will simply deduct the percentage of points. And if I did deduct the percentage of points and the rubric, your grade might even be even lower. I've seen very few papers, but I've seen some come in as high as 85, 90. I had one that came in at 92%. That meant that all the person did was copied and pasted. And they said they did not. I said, then you copied and paraphrased. The bottom line is this, is that you must give credit for the sources, and critical thinking is the key to submitting written assignments. And I discussed the purpose for critical thinking in week 1. So I remind students that Grammarly, and one student said that I hadn't set up my Grammarly account. And I said, shame on you, when I came out of the box first week and talked about the importance of setting your Grammarly up. Because we do use it. It's very important because we want to produce students who are really good critical thinkers. That's one of the transferable skills, one of the key transferable skills. So anyway, that's the written assignment for this course. And again, you have excellent resources that are available through this guide, and it specifically tells you about this assignment where you can find information as well. Now, you're not limited to that. But that is a place where you can find information that's going to be credible, because the Library Learning Center has provided credible resources for you. So the last thing I'm going to say, 3 minimum pages, not counting the cover page, not counting the reference page. 3, don't give me wide margins. You know Roman 10 point, and you know the proper margins that you should have as well. So you're going to write about these issues and provide at least 3. You can provide more credible resources. Okay, and that's it for that assignment. And then we go back and we look at the other part, the discussion posts. You know about that. And then, of course, the quiz. It's set for 30 minutes, and you want to make sure that you do well with that. Okay, and then again, the quiz, click on this if you wanted to. You could see this, and it tells you 30 minutes. It says it's automatically going to save, so I don't have to grade it. And if it's late, though, it won't automatically be saved. The reason why it won't automatically be saved is because it'll let me know it's late, and I will deduct a point. Even if you got 100 and it's late after the 18th, then you will see me deducting 1 point, and I will do that manually. And I'll keep going until I get to as far as I can on that. But you want to make sure that you do that. So it is due the 18th, 11:59 p.m. And then it tells you once you begin this test, you can't stop it. So once you click begin, there's no turning around after that. All right. So that's the assignments. Now let's go back and let's go through the module itself. Talk about the stuff that will help you with getting the assignments done. That is, discussing the topic of the week. So I go to the lesson content, and it deals with the objectives, all right, which I won't read. Again, it gives you your assignments. We're going to talk about this, then we're going to go with this video, and then we'll look at the drug laws activity, okay, to conclude. All right. So what's going on here is the state and the various jurisdictions, federal, has passed laws dealing with drugs and meth. Marijuana, cocaine, heroin are not manufactured, but they're grown from plants. But meth, amphetamine, also shortened called meth, is cooked or manufactured by adding other things, which makes it more dangerous. And a lot of household things that tells you can be combined, and there's some things that you think about you wouldn't even want in your body, like it mentions paint thinner, acetone, ammonia, iodine crystals, red phosphorus. Think about this, drain cleaner. This is actually added into to make methamphetamine, and you're going to put this in your body. Think about what it's going to do to your body, your mind, your whole body. Battery acid. Think about that. I mean, it will destroy your mind. Lithium. Do you not know that you're not even supposed to dispose of batteries or in a regular trash, you're supposed to put them in special places because it adversely affects the soil in landfills. So think about that from the perspective of you putting this in your body and what it might end up doing. And so, and then they talk about using like cold medicine, the things that could be used for other things, and adding that and mixing that with marijuana, cocaine, or heroin. It's really, 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 really bad. And so there are explosions that take place in these places where the crack houses or methamphetamine houses, the labs that are used that are in the house where they're cooking these things or putting these things together, it creates some real hazardous conditions for you and others around you. And it says here meth can be manufactured in labs and also been found in vehicles, in trunks of cars, and a lot of abandoned buildings. I was the village attorney in a town where there were abandoned buildings, and they were turned into crack houses or meth houses, where and things like that. So the federal government and other state laws to try to control the manufacturing of meth, such as the Combat Methamphetamine Epidemic Act of 2005, tries to affect methamphetamine by requiring that non-prescription products and to place these behind counters and in locked places. Now, that can go also with a drug that one of my students, I see she's with me today, Stephanie, Imodium. And that was why I withheld what I said last week, because I saw what you did. That was excellent, and you saw what I said about it. The key thing is this: is that it was discovered that innocent drugs that had medicinal purposes or can be used for good purposes other than medicine, that could be taken and added with one of these other things, cocaine, heroin, or even marijuana, where they laced it, then they had to put these in counters. And the other thing is this, is that they're working on, and in some places it's already in place, that as an individual you have to produce identification or proof that you actually are buying so much, because there's the log books, as it talks about here, so that they can keep track. So let's say this: you're coming in, you're demonstrating a pattern that you're coming in and you're buying these same items over and over and over again. It becomes apparent that it's not for medicinal purposes, that you're actually probably a meth dealer or a messenger for a meth dealer, and these things are being purchased to be utilized in the manufacturing of a methamphetamine. And so trying to curb these things. Remember, if you don't have these innocent ingredients, these ingredients that are used for medicinal purposes, or these other things that I talked about included in there, of course nobody's going to check to see how many batteries you're buying and stuff like that. However, though, you should be aware that if it's determined that you are constantly buying some of these things in large quantities, then that might be something that would tip off. And since many people are purchasing with credit cards, probably a lot of those people would purchase with cash. But the point of the matter is it gets to a point where the government is eventually going to require that before you even can buy quantities of some of these things like drain cleaners, batteries even. I mean, depending on the kind that you're buying, because it's not just the battery, but it's what the contents of the battery that makes it dangerous. And so it becomes a real serious problem. It says Mexican drug trafficking organizations have become the primary manufacturing distributor of methamphetamine to cities. Right now, as we speak, one of the chief Mexican cartel organizations, El Chapo, is on trial right now. You can follow that. They just I think selected the jury yesterday, and I was looking at all the steps that they are taking to protect those individuals. One person already didn't want to be part of the jury, but you should be aware that these individuals, and this actually is jumping ahead, but I'm just going to say this to you right now, is that there's some serious repercussions because of all the money that's involved. I mean, tons and tons and tons of drugs and large sums of money involved as well. So let's talk about some of these synthetic substances, some of the things that we just kind of talked about and that are being manufactured. It talks about synthetic cannabinoids, and these are things that are not marijuana. Remember, they're not marijuana. And you know what's happening is that across the United States of America, and I said this last week, that marijuana, which I believe is on Schedule 1 at the present time, is in the process of probably being removed from there because marijuana itself is being decriminalized across the United States. There was a referendum in one jurisdiction, I can't think of, I think it was here. I don't remember seeing it on the ballot where I voted, but I do know that, oh no, it's not here, because the newly elected governor said that he was in favor of it. And you know, here's what's happening. A lot of the legislators are saying this, is that we're having trouble with the war on drugs, as you know, we've already established that what we have to do is, we see people are getting marijuana illegally, and so what we want to try to do is to bring it. Okay, thank you, Michigan. Yeah. I recall that now. That was the case. Yeah, it was Michigan, and that and you know, it's interesting. Michigan's already got its problems with the water in Flint, for example, and also with the issue with Michigan. You know, the biggest city for drugs is what city in Michigan, and it should just roll off your tongue. I mean, Michael Moore wears, there you go, he wears it on his hat, Detroit. And that's because it's one of the biggest urban area. But there are problems there. I almost years and years ago considered going there, but and I have family that live in the area that one's a professor at a college. But the bottom line is that there is a movement to try to take marijuana out of being illegal because people are going to buy it, and also at the same time there is a movement to not flood the jails with individuals who use marijuana, particularly not in large quantities, but to take it out of the hands of dealers. Now, they can still be arrested for large quantities even if it's legalized, but there has to be a license and be able to control it. Also, one of the things about it is that it will also adversely affect the synthetic cannabinoid because of the fact that people will recognize that those people who are selling it with a license when it's legalized in a jurisdiction will, of course, the government gets their tax money out of it. And God knows that the state of Michigan is in a very serious financial problem, particularly in the urban area of Detroit, that it would provide some revenue that they can utilize to hire more law enforcement, more first responders, provide other things that are needed. And so as a result, the legal marijuana will be preferred. Now, that doesn't eliminate synthetic cannabinoids, because as you already know, there's a lot of things that are legal, like you can, music, for example, you get illegal music, and things like that. You get knockoffs and violating of copyright laws and all those things. So it's going to be the same kind of thing that continues. However, the synthetic cannabinoid will still be around. And so, again, relating to what I said earlier about how methamphetamines are manufactured, the products contain things that enhance the risk of mind-altering, damage to your heart, damage to your any part of your body, your lungs, your liver, your kidneys, and every part of your body. And so, and one of the things about this cannabis, the synthetic cannabinoid, and I remember talking to someone about this, is that, and it says it in here, it says it can't be detected in drug screening or urinalysis. So, and so if a person is on parole or probation and they're not supposed to do that, and then they have to take a drop, using these will probably save them. However, what will create a problem for those people is the mind-altering aspects of it, and what it will do to their bodies in the long run. And so your heart rate, your blood pressure, all other kind of bodily functions and things, you hallucinate, your anxiety level will rise, all these kinds of things. So what I'm saying is that they'll create those kinds of problems for people, even if they can take and pass the drug test itself. It says now at least 43 states have taken action to control one or more synthetic cannabinoids. It's up now. I don't have the recent number here, but it's almost up to 50. I don't remember. I'd have to do some more research. But prior to 2010, it said cannabinoids were not controlled by any state. So within the last 8 years, think about that. It's been around. And then you can see the picture, and you can see what some of these things look like. They look very innocent. So the bottom line is that they're out there, and what they can do to you. Bath salts. Now, let me say this to you. First of all, this is not the same as what's that stuff we use? I use to put in my tub if I'm hurting. Epsom salt. And so it's not that. That's not it. That's not bath salts. That's something. It's something totally different. It's a manufactured drug, and it has no medicinal purpose, none whatsoever, none, 000. And look at what people call them: bath salts, plant food, air freshener, and it's not what these are not what they are. But that's what they will call them to trick a person into thinking that they're not that bad. But usually, and you think about that, salts, in terms of how they're utilized, you find that people will snort those kind of things. Yep. Crack cocaine, gasoline. Yes. Oh yeah, you hitting it. You're on it. These are things, anything that you have to, that you snort, be aware, or sniff, uh, can, or taken orally, smoked as well. But I'm talking about now the snorting part. It's very deadly, cuts off your breath, cuts, and will send you into cardiac arrest. When I was in high school, um, one of the things that people would do is that they would sniff glue, glue, and they were sniffing this glue, and we've had at least several people when I was in high school that were known as glue sniffers, and they sniffed this glue. And one of my good friends went home for lunch, never came back, found him dead. He had sniffed the glue, and it's like this. If you can remember the old lead-based paint, which most of you are too young to remember it, but it's still some of us around. The lead-based paint and the smell of it, you couldn't even be in the room. They had to open up the windows, and even some of the lead-free paint now, the same way, the odor and smell, it would give you a headache or something like that. Well, take that and concentrate it and multiply it, and that's what these people were ingesting in their bodies, and it was just deadly. And it talks about it. You increase your heart. Boom, you'd have a heart attack. You'd have chest pains, sweat, all kinds of things, vomiting. All these different issues would happen with individuals using these. And it talks about the other things that I mentioned earlier: agitation, insomnia, irritability, dizziness, depression, paranoia, because you're out of your mind, and suicidal thoughts. You don't even have to have suicidal thoughts. You're already in suicidal thoughts. You're already in suicidal action by even sniffing or snorting these things. And so in 2012, it talks about an incident that happened in Miami where what they called a zombie attack took place. I remember this. And read it, and I'm going to say it. What it says a naked man. Because I'm saying, remember, you're high. When I was a kid, Purple Haze was one. Angel Dust, PCP. They had these things called joysticks. All of these things. I'm talking about things that were in the 60s. So this naked man was high on these bath salts, and it says this is what he did. He went to a homeless man and chewed on the face before being shot by the police. And since then, others called zombie attacks have taken place across the United States where bath salts are involved. So what it does, you're out of your mind, literally out of your mind. And you will do things that you would not probably do in most cases if you did not have this in your system. It's mind altering, body altering, and can lead to permanent serious injury and or death. So in 2011, DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, provided an order scheduling to control 3 synthetic substance stimulants that's in here to make bath salts. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Methadone 3,4, that other name that's long, I always have trouble with these. Methylene, diopyrrolene, or MDPV. Reminds me of when I do radio now, I still do. When I did television and radio, we had to phonetically write these out before that we did the announcements on them. So anyway, and then methadone. But anyway, it just created problems for people possessing these things, because the only reason people were possessing them is to make the bath salts. And so the obvious thing is that, and notice this, notice what happens, what the lawmakers do, attempt to keep up with chemicals and they end up scheduling laws. Well, I tell you what I always say about laws. Having been a lawyer, having been a prosecutor, having been a police officer, I can tell you this: laws don't create problems. It's the people who disobey the laws. The laws are in place to protect you, but what happens is people violate the laws. So, what are you saying? I am saying that the more laws on the books, it's not going to do it. What's going to do it is us actually getting the individuals some help. I've already advocated this. I'll say this probably a whole bunch of times this quarter. And you'll see it in some videos. We're going to have some graphic videos coming up in the weeks. You just wait and see. There is one book. Let me see. Give me a second while I reach for it. I keep it by my desk. It is, where is that book? Is it buried? Let's see. Where's my book? Must have fell off. Oh, here it is. Oh, here it is. Okay, I'm back. This is a book that I actually had a chance to have this guy come in. We'll be talking about this in future weeks, but I'm just throwing it out to you now. It's called From Dope to Hope, A Man in Recovery, Tim Ryan. And this guy actually came to the Romeoville campus, and we had a seminar, but I'll be talking about that later. But if you were to read this book, From Dope to Hope, A Man in Recovery, and it is available, you can get it. It tells a graphic story about a person and the different things that they encountered dealing with opioids, which we're talking about here. But anyway, the point of the matter is that here's the point, and this is what came out of this and what made me mention it, is that you can pass all the laws all day long. You can take away all the items, but what you're going to have to do is take away the desire of individuals to want these drugs. I haven't seen drug dealers been successful with getting people to buy drugs that they are not addicted to or that kind of thing. They may make money, but they only make money for customers. You know what happens when there's no consumer available for it? It goes out of business. So you know what I'm talking about. So we'll spend the rest of the quarter talking about that as well. So anyway, they passed the law, the National Youth Synthetic Drug Awareness Week, where it talks about facts that youth are using synthetic drugs and educating individuals. And that is true. We want to educate, but we also want to take away the drugs as well. I'm going to come back to this video in just 1 second here. I just want to remind you again, and I'm not going to do these activities here, that you can go over the activity and ask, go over the questions and then provide your answers, and then you can look at that. This will be found in your readings. Important, very important, because it helps you prepare for your quiz for the week, is to take the time to go over these drug law activity things that are here and to use these flashcards. Again, I'm not going to take time to do it now, but I do encourage you. They did a good job of putting that together, so I encourage you guys. Don't say, oh, it's extra work. No, it's not. It helps you to pass, helps you to get good grades. So now let's look at this TED Talk. Now it's a little detailed, some tough language, but I'm going to take off my headset so really something. It's about 20 minutes, so it might go a few minutes over, about 5 minutes over. So
But this is really, really something. You need to pay close attention to this. Okay, let's get it. Know that I'll be talking not about my own tragedy, but other people's tragedy. It's going to be lighthearted about other people's tragedy than your own. And I don't want to keep you in the spirit of the conference. So if you believe the media account, being a drug dealer in the height of the cocaine epidemic was a very glamorous life, in the words of Virginia Pastrell. There's money, there's drugs, guns, women, you name it, jewelry, bling bling. It had it all. But what I'm going to tell you today is that in fact, based on 10 years of research, a unique opportunity to go inside a gang example markets and things like that. And so we asked the gang member, well, why did you always get paid? Your workers don't always get paid. His response is, you got all these niggers below you who want your job, you dig? If you start taking losses, you must weaken shit. Okay? So I thought about it. CEOs often pay themselves $1 million bonuses even when companies are losing a lot of money. And it definitely really occurred to economists that this idea of weakening shit could really be important. Maybe weakening shit is an important hypothesis.
Okay, I hope you were able to hear that whole presentation. Were you able to hear it? Just type in the chat box. Were you able to hear it? No? Oh, that's probably because my mic was muted. But you were able to see what he was talking about because of the writing on there. Is that right? Yeah, I think what happened is that I didn't realize it is that when this system does it, it mutes my mic. But anyway, you were able to get the essence of it, and you can go back and listen to it yourself. It's not very long. But one of the key things that he talked about, and you could see it from if you read what he was saying, even if you couldn't hear it, that's the reason why it's closed caption, is that he was presenting a situation as to why we have problems with crime and violence and gangs. I should know because I was the lawyer for a couple of the big gangs. And just the way that he described it, I mean, the gang leaders themselves, they made all the money. The people who were on the streets, they were expendable because they would get knocked off, then they'd be replaced by somebody else, they would go to jail, and all of those different kinds of things. So there were all kinds of problems. So bottom line is what he was saying is crack dealing was not the greatest of things for the street soldiers, the ones who were out there selling. As he was saying that McDonald's, the top people, they make the money, but the ones at the bottom, they tend to think they're going to move up, but the top people are around for so many years. And so as a result, it's a pipe dream to think that you're going to end up climbing the ladder and going to a higher level. And so what happens is that the individuals would find themselves in situations where they would allow all kinds of things to happen. And okay, good. You had watched it before. Okay, but the truth of the matter is that it kind of sets the stage for what's happening around us here. Except the people that are hooked on these drugs are individuals who are the customers, and it's like a sample, and they get you on that sample, and then you end up stuck. One of the things that he said early on about crack cocaine, and I remember when it came into being, that gangs were different when I was a kid, and then when crack cocaine came around, got pretty prevalent in the late 80s, early 90s, and gangs started using it as a way to make money. And then following that now, as we have now, are these violent shootings because the gangs had to protect their turf with weapons. And as you and I know, that the aim of these people is not very good. So what consequently happens is that innocent people are shot and killed in these scenarios. That's the major problem. But again, we get back to the point that we talked about for most of this session, is that individuals found themselves where they were had a cheap high, the crackheads, and they would do anything to get that crack, and it was cheap, but they said it was a short high, and they'd want to get high again. And so what happened is that after a while, they start not just selling regular crack cocaine, they start mixing it with other things as well. And turned into like a methamphetamine type thing. And it might have cost a little more, but guess what? The people by this point, they're so hooked on it that they'll do whatever it takes to get that fixed and satisfied. So it creates a problem. And so, again, it takes me right back to the point, and then I'm going to conclude that we need to understand something, is that we have to fix this by removing the desire. And how do we do that? We educate. Prosecuting people who are users is a no-no. Getting them the help and assist they need in terms of drug treatment, yes. Do we want to spend our money with more law enforcement? Yeah, we do want to have more law enforcement out here. But the point of the matter is we also at the same time need to look at the individuals who are crackheads as individuals who need medical attention. And therefore, we treat them the same way as a person who has pneumonia, cold, the flu, or whatever it is. We need to get some help. And so that's pretty much where we are in terms of this week's. And the key word that I want is crack cocaine. That's it. That's what I want. I want both of them, though. And I'm not going to repeat it again because I already said it. So you give me that key word, and that you will get your points. I'm sorry I missed that chat point that there was no sound because I could have fixed that earlier. But I know what happens now. They did something with this WebEx and changed it so that when we take our camera off, it also does something with the sound. So we have to fix that. I know how to do that. There was a way I could have done it. But you had already seen it, and then the other thing is that anybody who comes behind you, they will see what the person is saying because the closed caption. You saw the closed caption, right? Even though you couldn't hear it, did you? Okay, good. Well, that's key. That's key. That's key anyway. So, all right. So I'm going to say good night, and I will see you next week. Again, remember to look at the requirements that I set out tediously about the assignments for this week so that you can maximize your grades. So I'm going to say good night. See you next week at the same time. All right? And thanks for spending time today coming out to the lecture. I tell students this. Those who come out, those who participate in the live lectures and not just the video, they're the ones who are going to get the best grades. Not because I give it to them, but because it just